disappears here. I know there's a slight delay.
There we go. Yeah, it's
It
gone.
has disappeared? Excellent.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and leave the team speak, gentlemen. I will catch you later.
All right,
Yeah.
catch you in a bit.
Disconnected.
All right, guys, just about another 8 minutes here. I'm gathering some of my paperwork, and we're going to get underway. You can ignore the fact that we are JetBlue here in the midst of a bunch of American Airlines airplanes. Thanks for the kind words, guys. Appreciate that. I'm just trying to change my chat box here. I know the comments disappear. I was just trying to have them stay on just a little bit longer. I got it on a timer. All right, well, we'll leave it be for now. Sam Kennedy, appreciate it, man. Glad I converted somebody over to the Airbus. All right, we're going to step in here, and we're going to get going right away. So we are in the Flight Factor Airbus A320. We're in a cold and dark state. Well, we're not dark so much anymore, but this is the state of the aircraft that most flight crews will walk into the aircraft. We've got pretty much everything off. We are connected to the ground power. That's the only thing hooked up right now. And it sounds like the ground air is on. And of course the recirc fans are going. But this is a pretty typical configuration when we get to the aircraft. So we'll hop in here and start going through our initial flows. So we're going to come on down here. Let's get the nav light on. Cruise supply comes on. Ground control push button, we would turn that on. We'll get the ADIRS going. This is a standard 320. This is not a Neo. There are no Neos in X-Plane yet, unfortunately. I do fly the Neo, however. This beautiful plane. Now I'm going to have to do a little bit of fire testing here. Alright, APU's been tested. We're going to go ahead and get it going. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, so typically it's very hot out here, especially in the summertime. So the ground air units that try to keep the airplane cool, those big yellow hoses, you'll see them come out from the jet bridges. Don't have one modeled here, it looks like, but they connect to the aircraft and they try to keep it cool, but they don't do a very good job, so APU usage definitely goes up in the summertime. Right, let's load up our McDo. I did update my nav database. I know some of you guys were bothering me about that. So we have a current nav database. 18 July. Actually, wait. Oh, yeah, it's current. Awesome. Alright, initialization. We are going from Phoenix to San Diego. It's going to be a short flight. I like to keep them a little bit shorter during live streams. I know it can get a little boring up there in cruise, but this is going to be about an hour and 10, hour and 20 minutes total flight time. Today we're operating is JetBlue 159. We're going to be going nice and fast, cost index 99. Cruise altitude is going to be 300. So, ISA is negative 44. Our current winds aloft temps are plus 5. So the actual winds aloft temp is going to be negative 39. If you're kind of unfamiliar of how to program the box, I don't want to get too much into making this a tutorial video. I have a bunch of those out on my channel, but if you got a couple questions, throw them in the chat and I'll see if I can get to them. But we're just going to kind of run through this. Alright, so we're going off of Phoenix. We're going to take runway... Ooh, we got to see what the current weather is, actually. Right now, sky clear, visibility more than 10. 090 at Niner. 2974. So it looks like we're going to be taking off a runway 8. Unfortunately, that's going to be a little bit longer taxi, but no problem. We're going to take off runway 8 on the Firebird 1 RNAV departure. Oops. Keep this in plan mode here. Firebird 1. Page over to the Mohawk transition. This takes us down south right along the U.S.-Mexico border. From Mohawk, we're going to intercept airway J2 to Hogs intersection. From Hogs, we're going to join the San Diego RNAV arrival and approach for localizer. We're going to be doing a Loc 27 today, so if you guys want to stick around for that. I know localizer approaches are kind of not very popular. We'll do one today. Loc 27 into San Diego on the Lucky 1 RNAV from the... Is it the Imperial? No, it should be Hogs. Let's see. There we go. There's my Hogs transition. Alright, so let's step through this, make sure we got our box loaded correctly. Beautiful, beautiful RNAV that takes us all the way into the approach, so it should help us out on that localizer and make it a little bit easier as well. I know San Diego weather right now is about 1600 overcast. Alright, so our flight plan's in there. Secondary, one thing I do love about the flight factor is we got our secondary flight plan function working. We can go ahead and do this properly. So for us, where I work, we always set up a emergency air return in the secondary. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just throwing in an ILS to runway 8 since we're taking off runway 8. And we're setting up our performance data just for the approach if we have to come back into Phoenix. So we take off, we blow an engine, pull heading, activate secondary flight plan, and we already have an ILS approach ready to go. We don't have to be heads down, we can just fly the airplane. Yes, Jungly, this is the Flight Factor Airbus A320. Good afternoon, Danny. Vertical Simulations, hola. Alright, our secondary is in there. RadNav, we're going to hard tune the PXR. Alright, so that looks good. Let's go ahead. Oop, I skipped init B here. We do need to initialize. So, cold and dark, align on ref. Yes, sir. Confirm alignment. And we're going to just hold off on that page. Let's do our flow here. Get the APU bleed running. We can disconnect the ground power. It's cool to cabin down a little bit. Alright, so we're 25 degrees Celsius in the cockpit. We're cooling it down. Not too bad. It's pretty mild this morning. In America, the temperature values are Celsius or Fahrenheit. They are all in Fahrenheit. They're all in Fahrenheit, so yeah, it's a little bit different. It's just a software thing. Also, we do everything in pounds. This is kilograms, so it's a little weird for me, but I'm sure everybody in Europe uses kilograms and Celsius. There are some things, though, that are in Fahrenheit or in Celsius, even in our airplanes here in the States. Like our flex takeoff is in Celsius, and there's a couple other ones I can't think of off the top of my head. This right here will always be in Celsius. This won't be in Fahrenheit. This will always be in Celsius. Alright, so let's see what we got for passengers today. $9.5 on the fuel. That's plenty of gas. I loaded us up full. And cargo, add a little bit more. We'll set that. What do we got? Alright, so zero fuel weight 54.8. That matches, and our CG of 30.5. Perfect. No alternate, plenty of extra gas, 2 hours and 42 minutes extra fuel. That means we're tankering a lot of gas, which we probably wouldn't really do in real life, but I didn't want to convert pounds to kilograms, or kilograms to pounds, so we're just going to take 9.5 with us. Right around this time, we're going to start hearing things closing up. You can hear those, that faint whine in the background. That's the hydraulic doors closing in the cargo compartment. It's very accurate to real life. I mean, it's shocking how accurate that sounds. I am using the BSS sound pack, so absolutely awesome. We can remove that. Keep the boarding door open for now. Remove the fuel truck. So we are looking good. All right. Having a look at our departure procedure here for our top altitude. the Firebird 1. We are cleared up to 8,000 feet. Alright, last thing we're going to set is our perf data. We're going to go V1 of 142, 151, 155. We're flexing 57. Flaps 1. Transition out 18,000. Thrust reduction acceleration is 2640. Alright, we are pretty much good for push now. Good day, Krisk. Let's see, that's exactly what I want to do there. We're going to push off Bravo 22 straight back in the alley.
Round to cockpit, plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready.
It's a little interesting right there. When my vertical speed shot up. Alright, let's go ahead and close the passenger door. Alright, we're ready to run a B4 start checklist. Windows, doors, and slides, close and arm. Beacon, on. Thrust levers, idle. Parking brake is on for now. Transponder, ooh, we should set that. Today we're going to be squawking 1525. And let's go ahead and turn them down a little bit. Haley's talking to me back there. Just joined James Donlin. Where are we? We are at Phoenix Sky Harbor, Kilo Papa Hotel X-Ray. We are going to be flying a short flight over to San Diego International Airport. 292 miles. Should take a little over an hour. We're going to be looking at some beautiful Fork Boy scenery. We're operating this flight as JetBlue 159, departing from the American Airlines terminal, which you would probably never see. But that's why I love X-Plane. Also, I love X-Plane because we have tugs driving through the terminal just like that. Beautiful.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Ramp JetBlue 159, push up Bravo 22. Say, JetBlue 159, you're clear to push Bravo 22, tail in the alley. Call back for taxi. I'm doing my own ATC for right now. This next, hopefully the next stream I do will be on Pilot Edge, and we'll do some real radio communications, but I know you guys like to see that.
So connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Roger that, brakes released, clear to push, tail in the alley please. There goes the jet
Starting
bridge.
pushback, and you may start engines.
Well, we're going to hold off on that engine start just a little bit here until we get clear. Danny, any way to support the channel? You know, that's very thoughtful to ask. I appreciate that. You know, not just yet. I think I am going to be trying to do this a lot more frequently, and we're going to get some support systems set up here in the near future. Just been a little busy with real life, but it's kind of stabilizing out here a little bit. So I'm planning on really getting the stream going and doing more content for you guys. So I will in the future have some support options. I really appreciate that. As you guys know, I'm a passionate av geek, so I love bringing content to you guys, showing you how to operate the Airbus as we do in the real life. Alright, we're crew ahead clear. Let's go ahead and start engine number 1. We have a bleed pressure. Turn at number 1. Yes, vertical sim. I fly all over.
Complete. Set parking brake.
Oops. Brake set. Clear to disconnect. Show me the pin. Have a good day.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Yeah, I fly East Coast, West Coast, South America. They go all over, man. Although lately I've been trying to stay close to home, so I do a lot of turns. I do a lot of LaGuardia turns. I go out to New York and back, or somewhere else. I kind of taking a break from the long 4-day trips. Just doing day trips lately. Good start on 1. Go ahead and start number 2.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal will be on the right. We'll see you next time and have a great flight.
Alright, thanks for the smooth push. We'll see you next time. Yeah, Danny, I will, you know what, I'm actually planning on doing, I got the Orbix scenery over there in on the UK, so I will be doing some streams in the Europe region. I'm not very familiar with that. Obviously, I fly single aisle, you know, Airbus, so we stay pretty locally. We don't go to Europe with them. But I've got a friend. He's actually watching the video right now. He's a EASA pilot. So if you got any EASA questions, go ahead and ask him. But yeah, I'd like to do some streams over there, flying in different parts of the world. We can experience it together. Any payware airports you'd like to see on the East Coast? Ooh, I'll have to think about that one. That's a good question. Any other experience flying any type of aircraft? Yeah, I got a slew of different of aircraft. Not too many are an X-plane yet. I mean, I've flown dozens of corporate jets. I've got a lot of turboprop experience. I have flown the bunch of regional jets as well. The Embraer series, the 145, 35, 170s, and 190s, and of course the Airbus family. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get things going here. So after start checklist, that comes off, that goes up. Reset the trim. We're doing a flaps 1 takeoff. Engine 2 started, bleed can come off. Master off, taxi light on. Flaps 1, a taxi. Ground, JetBlue 159, ready taxi. JetBlue 159, taxi runway 8 via... Set Charlie 11 Bravo 1. Runway 8 via Charlie 11 Bravo 1. JetBlue 159. Yeah, we'll try to explain. I'll explain some of the Airbus questions there once we get up in cruise, the green dot, and THS control. As far as THS control, it's pretty much all automatic in the Airbus. That's pretty much the easy way to say it. We set our trim for takeoff. Like I said, ours is 30.1. So the way we do it is we set, there's 30. Whoa, that's a little much. Hold on a minute, let's get going where we're going here. 30.1. And that's pretty much it. We set it there on taxi out, and that's pretty much the only time you touch the trim in the Airbus. The THS setting here on the perf page. For the 320 family, the 19, 20, and 21, this doesn't do anything, the THS, so we don't even bother that. Some companies probably put a reminder in there, but I think on the wide-body Airbus, it may actually set your trim for you. I do not know 100%, but as far as 320's family goes, this box does absolutely nothing. Oh, I was looking at my frames being all not too good here. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a trick that I learned yesterday. If you're flying the 320, go ahead and open your task manager, and in your X-plane, if you have two CEF renders, end one of those, and it should smooth out your performance. So I just did that. Yeah, a little increase in frames there. Because, yeah, I don't know, somebody showed me that trick. It seems to ease the frames a little bit. Alright, let's do a mini brief. It's going to be off of runway 08 on the Firebird 1 RNAV departure. Gross weight is 64.2. Flaps, config 1 plus F. Fuel on board 9.3. Speeds 142, 155. Flexing 57 set. Initial altitude is 8,000. We're looking at a standard transition. First fix, RNAV to FUTEP off of runway 8. No questions, no questions. Flight control check. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. And we would test the rudders. We're not going to do that right now. I'm using them to taxi, but you would do your rudder full left, full right, and neutral. After that has been completed, we come right up here. Auto brakes, max, takeoff config. TA, this would go to PWS would come on, radar on, TARA, make a small PA, flight attention, prepare for takeoff. And then before takeoff checklists. Gross weight comparison is complete. Pitch trim 30.1%, CG set. Let's look at that a little bit. There's 30.1 here. There we go, 30.1% CG set. V1, VR, V2, flex. 142, 151, 155, flex 57 set. Flaps, config, a 1 plus F. Flight instruments, checked. Flight controls, check. ECAM memo, takeoff, all green. ECAM status is checked, PWS is on. TCAS, code set, TARA, cabin crew advised, mini briefs complete. Runway, I see runway 8 out there. Got runway 8 in the box. Fuel is 7.2 required, 9.3 on board. Engine mode selector, normal, bleeds and packs are set. Or takeoff check is complete. We are ready to go. Fort Lauderdale, I'll just catch up with those comments there. I'm gonna. This is my first time using some new stream software, so I apologize for the comments. They're disappearing a little bit faster than I'd like. I'm gonna adjust that for the next one. So I'm trying to scroll back through them and get to them, guys. I apologize that I'm not trying to ignore you. Bring on Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, I fly in there quite a bit, especially with the runway closure right now. It's a mess, so I try to avoid that. Thankfully, my seniority allows me to avoid that place for now. What do I think of the X-Craft ERJ that was released? You know, I was very close to getting it, but from what I understand, the FMS isn't even really modeled. It's just kind of a default FMS, and there's a couple other things I saw that I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to spend my money on that. As a regional pilot, you don't want to go back to those days anyway, but I would like to fly it. I think if it was a fully modeled 145, I might hop into it. Not to say that I won't get it, but as of right now, it's not on the top of my list. They do look pretty, though. I'll give them that. Am I enjoying the toll list of late with all the updates it's had lately? Absolutely. I was going to do the toll list today. However, I already did a toll list stream last week, and we're doing a localizer approach this morning into San Diego, and there's still some data that's missing in the ND and in the flight management aspect of the aircraft that don't really allow for good localizer approaches, such as your top of descent, bottom of descent arrows, and things like that. So I'm going to step off the toll list for now. I do love the toll list aircraft, though. It's been a joy to fly. Something in the New England region. Yeah, you know what? I'll get back to you on that, man. I'm gonna think of a good one for you. Ooh, I just thought of it. Portland, Maine. I do love doing the harbor visual in the Portland, Maine. Taxi speed for the 320 family. Well, if I'm taxiing, it's go home day. I'll be doing 30 knots if it's long and straight. Typically, it's going to be around 15 to 20. If you're above 137,000 pounds gross weight, you also have a restriction on your steering, so you got to be careful of that. Have I tried Flight Factor 320 single engine? Yeah, not in a while. I know it had some issues earlier. I don't know if it still does. Sup from Texas. There we go, my man. I'm from Texas, too. Alright, here we go. JetBlue 159, runway 8, RNAV 2. FUTEP, clear for takeoff. Alright, RNAV FUTEP. Clear for takeoff, JetBlue 159. Here we go. Lights are coming on. Alright, here we go. Spool up, 50%. Stable. Straight to the flex D10. Man, flex, SRS runway. Auto thrust is blue. $80 knots. Thrust set. V1. Rotate. Positive rate and gear up. We're navving. Oh, stop looking around, fly the airplane. That's one thing that's really hard for me, especially being a real-world pilot, man. Once I get in this thing, I want to look at it from the outside and all the phases of flight that you can't look at it from up front in real life. So I tend up flying a little bit sloppier than I should in the sim just because I'm looking at all the eye candy. Alright, lever climb. I'm just waiting for a positive trend in airspeed. And we can go ahead and bring the thrust levers back into the climb detent now. Thrust climb, auto thrust. JetBlue 159, contact departure. We'd contact departure. That's interesting. They'd say climb maintain 190. 190 is blue. Flap 0 after takeoff checklist. Speed checks, flap 0. After takeoff check. We'll go ahead and go autopilot 1. Looks like we're holding 220 for a speed restriction out of here. How much FPS do I get in the sim? Well, when I'm flying the flight factor and fork buoy and other stuff, I don't know, it can range between 20 and 30. It kind of depends on the add-ons that I'm using, but I'd say anywhere 20, 30, 40 light aircraft, and I V-sync it at 60 anyway, so I don't know, I'm using some new stream software, so if it looks choppy or you don't like it, let me know, and maybe we can change it next time. Why do you lower your side stick during roll? Oh, so from 0 to 80 knots, or I'm sorry, 0 to 100 knots, we have forward pressure on the stick up to 2/3 deflection, just to keep the aircraft. It's really, to be completely honest with you, I don't know 100%, but I would have to assume it's with aiding in steering control, keeping a little pressure on that nose wheel, because the rudder does not have very much effectiveness at a low speed like that. So effectiveness, I should say authority. There's not much authority with the rudder at low speed. So by keeping a little pressure on that nose wheel, we can have a little better control with the pedals, because until the speed gets up to 100 knots, you still have a few degrees with the pedals to actually turn the nose wheel. So we keep that pressure on the nose wheel to have good control, and then once we get to 100 knots, that forward deflection is reduced to 0, which will, now we can use our rudder pedals, because the rudder will have full authority with the wind going around it. Fly with EasyJet a lot in the UK, so it's good to see how the Airbus is flown by a real pilot in the sim. We'll have to watch the rest of the stream after work. Off to drive some trains. Thanks. Awesome, man. Add-on for V-speed and the tow list. They need one for flight factor. Yeah. Hello from Melbourne, Australia. I got a good friend from Australia. Alright, let's do some work up here. I'm kind of sitting around. We're at 10,000 feet. Lights are coming off. And we'll go ahead and ding the flight attendants that we are climbing through 10,000 feet. And this should have been retracted after takeoff. After takeoff checklist is complete. A little late there, but hey, it's a beautiful day. I like to look outside. Alright, we're passing massive here at or above 7,220 knots. After that, I think we are restriction free. There we go. Now we can go ahead and climb out at our climb speed 337 knots. Cost indexed of 99. We could see that our speed is 337 right here. You can see 337 managed at 80 Mach. Beautiful. Let's see if we can cut the corner here a little bit. JetBlue 159, proceed direct to Cibola. Direct to Cibola. JetBlue 159. Here we go. JetBlue 159, climb and maintain a flight level 300. Climb maintain 300, JetBlue 159. I believe that is our cruise altitude. Yes, it is. I am using the Fork Boy Ortho scenery. thanks to Q8 Pilot for really putting the install video out there and how to do that. He's definitely a great dude. I watch a lot of his videos. It's actually probably, I give him the most credit for actually getting me into X-Plane. I was a diehard FSX simmer, and I kept watching Q8 and his beautiful sim rig, so I made the jump, and through his videos I've definitely been able to make my sim look much better. This is the Fork Boy Ortho for Arizona. As a flight instructor, I lived out here, did all my training out here. I'm very familiar. Phoenix Sky Harbor. Let's see, Deer Valley Airport should be right over here somewhere. Yeah, I definitely get carried away streaming and chatting. So what do you guys think about the 737 MAX? Y'all gonna start flying on them again? Ah! Green dots in IAS. What are they for? So, we don't see it right now, but the best way to put it, a simple way to put it is green dot is going to be your best lift to drag ratio. It's going to be your best speed for your best lift to drag. So, for instance, when we use green dot in the real world, there's a couple scenarios where above a certain altitude a green dot can mean something else and drift down. And without getting into too much detail, I'll put it this way. So, the other day we were flying into Dallas, and the weather got real bad. They said, hey, we need you, we're starting to hold now. We've closed the doors for landing at DFW. We're going to start holding aircraft. So they gave us a holding instruction. We entered the hold, and our procedure is to slow to green dot plus a few knots depending on our gross weight and altitude. So where we were, I think it was green dot plus 10. That's about a safe spot to be. And what that does is it allows us to hold at the most efficient speed for the aircraft. So we have the least amount of drag at that speed and for that gross weight. So it's more efficient for us to hold at a green dot speed. Now, let's go ahead and pull standard out of 18,000 feet. Go ahead and turn off the seatbelt sign. So that's pretty much what we use green dot for in real life. Now there's other instances when we use green dot for drift down sequences that's can get pretty complex, and I'm not going to get into that right now. I don't want to bore you guys. But I hope, is that what you're asking? So that green dot, it's really just your most efficient speed to fly if you're using a hold, or if you wanted to climb, you could use it for performance climb, but it's not really what we use it for. There's a lot of other things unseen that you learn in training that what green dot actually represents. So without getting into too much detail, it's an efficient speed to hold. That really is what you can use it for in the sim. Have I tried to explain in VR? No, I haven't. I like to have snacks and adult beverages when I'm flight simming, so having a VR headset on might hinder that. Plus, I got two little dogs running around, and they start chewing up stuff, I gotta make sure to scold them. If I'm under a VR headset, I don't know what'll happen. Plus, the wife might come kill me and I wouldn't even know it, so I think it's safer for me to stay out of the VR arena. So I heard JetBlue 321 is underpowered. Is it true? It is. I don't know if I would call it underpowered. It's definitely not. It's definitely not overpowered. But you have to remember now. So the 320, 319, and 321. It's the same airplane, same wing design, except the fuselage is stretched. Right, 19 is the shortest, 20, 21. But they also derate the engines. So the engine thrust on a 321 is significantly more than it is on a 319 and even a 320. However, with that being said, depending on how you load the aircraft, like your seat configurations, how many people you get on the airplane, the 321 can be a little bit underpowered in the sense of, climb performance and things like that. But I actually prefer the 321 if I'm flying it, especially in the summertime, because it just seems to ride smoother. I don't know if you guys have been flying in the Airbus as passengers. The 319, 320, it's a very stiff ride, as opposed to something like a Boeing. When you're looking out, you see those wings flexing a lot, and they really absorb some of that shock. Now, the 321, while it's not as soft as a Boeing, I do find it a little bit softer and a little bit more stable in turbulence. But yes, it can be a dog, especially if you're really hot and really heavy, and you're trying to meet altitude constraints and stuff like that. It can be a tad on the slow, sluggish side. But that's the price to pay if you're flying a bigger airplane. Do I ever fly in a Tucson? Man, not in several years. I don't take the Airbus in there that I think of. No, I haven't. I used to fly in there as a regional guy and flying corporate stuff. I'm an Airbus fan. Used to be, it's funny. I used to be pretty diehard Boeing myself, but then when I got assigned the Airbus, took a while adjusting, but I definitely fell in love with it. And I don't think I could go back. I've had friends that have left the Airbus and gone into the 737, and they say they hate their lives. That airplane is much more of a workload on the pilot than the Airbus. Ironically, the Airbus was more of a workload coming from the Embraer 190. I flew the Embraer 190, 175. That airplane is more automated than the Airbus. The Airbus is still 80s technology when you break it down. So, release the packs. Yep, turn the seatbelt sign off. They should be good now. Bunch of monkeys running around back there. Surely the MAX will become one of the safest aircraft considering all the testing. That's an interesting point, Stephen. I'm sure it's going to be very safe to fly. And you look back at history, the 727, one of my favorite airplanes ever. I mean, it had 3 or 4 crashes right off the bat. So, while it's sad, I think it will definitely become a safe airplane to fly, especially with all the scrutiny it's been given to now. However, I don't really appreciate Boeing's practices and how they push the MAX out. I think somebody needs to be held accountable, and that starts at the top. So you put 400 people in the grave with a design flaw that you were aware of, and you try to sweep it under the rug. Somebody's got to be held accountable for that. That's where you look at the Paris Air Show, and I see a $24 billion order from British Airways. That kind of made me mad. I'd like to see Boeing really feel the impact of what they've done, but that order alone will help keep Boeing afloat for a little bit. What if you're holding an attempt to burn fuel, like an emergency, for example? That's a good question. So you'd probably hold at a little higher speed, or actually, if I were to burn fuel, I'd probably slow down to gear extension speed, throw the gear out, and try to burn fuel that way. Now, depending on the case of the emergency, you can do an overweight landing. It just depends on how overweight are you. But if you're on fire or something, I really don't care about the landing gear at that point. The aircraft has to get on the ground. So an overweight landing is something you train for. We practice about, we talk about it, in real world. So if there is a situation where the aircraft has to be on the ground, overweight landing is kind of the least of our worries at that point. But if I did have to burn fuel, if I had time, I would circle. I'd probably pick a low altitude, maybe even 10,000 feet, 250 knots, get the gear out, and just fly around with the gear down. That'll definitely burn some fuel quick. 737 MAX was designed from old platform to satisfy customers. I'm worried. Yeah, you know what? The MAX was designed to compete, as far as I understand, compete with the Airbus Neo. And, you know, Airbus, the inherent design of the 320 was in such a way that when they went to do the Neo option, or the new engine option, the airframe was capable of accepting the new engines and the tweaks made to it without altering anything. Boeing had to actually raise the engine mount to get the engine to fit. So if you look at a MAX, you'll see that the engine nacelle actually comes above the leading edge of the wing because it wouldn't fit, because the Boeing sits lower, closer to the ground. That it changed the stall characteristics, and it changed everything else, so then they had to put in a stall recovery system, and it was rushed. They knew about it. They didn't care. It was all about money. Money, follow the money. If you ever want to find out anything in life, just follow the money and you'll get all your answers from that. So they made an error. They knew about it. People are dead, and it's a sad story. So it really put a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not a huge Boeing fan anymore, although the 727 will be near and dear to my heart for probably the rest of my life. Maxes must be very cheap now. Yeah, so about that, Chris, before they put 2 of them in the ground, Boeing was actually offering our company, I think it was every 3rd aircraft free. So you put in an order, you pay for 2, you get the 3rd one free. You pay for 2, you get another one free. So after the crashes, I can only imagine what kind of discounts Boeing was giving out to try to get orders sent to or just to get orders out. So who knows what the deals were. I'm actually surprised we didn't buy any Maxes, but I don't I don't know. I can only imagine. Maybe they say, hey, we'll pay for training, we'll give you simulators. Who knows what the deals that could have been made were. VR is amazing, it'll blow your mind. Yeah, I'm sure it would blow my mind, but I need that, so I'm gonna stay out of it for a while. Plus, my current rig, I don't think can handle it. My rig might blow up before my mind does. Hello, I'm new to your channel. How are you? I'm good, Yoder. How are you? Well, when I fly the 321 to Boston, it tends to be the smoother flights than 320. Yeah, it's just a bigger airplane, bigger wing, or I'm sorry, not a bigger wing, just a longer fuselage, heavier aircraft. So it tends to kind of beat down the turbulence, so to speak. You're climbing out and you're getting bumped around. It feels like the 321 is just moving through it, moving the air out of the way, as opposed to the 320 and 319 where they're just bouncing all over the place. The 319 is like going for a ride on a bucking bronco if you're going into Florida in the summertime. It's just unreal how bumped around you can get. Actually, funny story about that. We were in a 319 the other night, and just trying to check where we are here. We're going to start planning for our descent here shortly. But, so I was in a 319. Oop, no fork boy on that side. We got to look out this window. We were in a 319, middle of the night, coming back home, and man, I had my iPad on my tray table in the cockpit, which is right here, and the other guy was doing something. We were just kind of relaxed, cruise, low workload, middle of the night. We flew over a wake, and I tell you what, man, my iPad was right here on this table. It almost hit me in the nose. It was the most jarring drop I'd ever felt in an airplane. I know there's a video going around the internet. I think it was, I'm not sure where it was a 737, I think, that had severe turbulence and that put somebody in the ceiling. Well, we didn't have anybody go in the ceiling or anything like that, but it definitely launched us pretty good. That'll wake you up in the middle of the night too. You get adrenaline rush. We came over here. We're checking our flight controls, checking our hydraulics. I mean, it definitely scare you. Have you ever thought of flying a 330 or 350? I'd love to, man. We'll see where, I'm happy now. I don't know if you're talking about as a pilot, but where I am in my career stage, I'm happy flying where I am. With my seniority allows me to have really good schedules. Like I said, I do mostly out and backs now. Day trips, what we call them, and I get to kind of pick where I want to fly, what days I want off. So we'll see what happens. I would love to fly a 350 though. At some point, I really do love that airplane. I think it's. I have always, as much as I love Airbus, I've always thought that Boeing's classical designs were always better than Airbus. I think Airbus looked a little bit, I don't know, toyish. But when they came out with that 350, I think the 350 is hands down one of the most beautiful airplanes in the skies. You see them on the ramps, taxiing by them. There's a Qatari I believe it's Qatar 350 flying in a DFW quite a bit. The other day we were out there and we saw them on the ramp, and just beautiful airplane. They made the MAX because AA was going to buy the 320 Neos, but AA eventually struck a deal with Boeing that they would buy their new planes. This was like, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. AA is, I won't talk about them. I'm not. I don't really like some of the stuff that they do as a whole, but I would not doubt that at all. That sounds about right. Too bad you don't fly in a Tucson home station with the Rolls-Royce flying test bed 74200. Oh man, I'd love to get a tour someday. Well, you know what, Blue Max, send me a PM if you want, man. And if I ever find myself in Tucson, which I'm from Phoenix, Arizona originally, so I do visit Arizona quite a bit. Sometimes I go through Tucson. I would love to. That would be awesome. So if you wouldn't mind, if you want to, feel free to send me a PM, and maybe one day if I'm in Tucson, I'd love to hit you up. Brit Max came over after Trump went to visit the Queen. Just coincidence? I don't know. You know what, man? We can get into all kinds of coincidences. I really don't know, so I'm not going to speak on it. But who knows why? I'm not a fan of it. Do we get weather briefings in the airlines? Absolutely. We actually get a full stack of paper. It's pretty old school still, but 50 pages or so, and it has all the weather, surface charts, forecast, everything we need to know. 3/19/2021 in real life. Yes, I do. Milo Sanks. Are you the voice actor for the penguin in Madagascar? No, I have not, but I do have a little daughter on the way, so I'm sure I'll understand that reference here shortly. I'm really waiting for the SIDS and Stars update for the 350. How heavy is that ortho? Are you talking about in performance-wise? I haven't had too many issues performance with ortho. It's mostly this flight factor 320 that's the hit. When I fly any other airplane in ortho, I really noticed hardly at all any impact on performance, and I run a Gen 1 i7, so it's mostly the aircraft. We're going to have to start setting up for an approach here pretty soon. Get a couple more of these comments. For what does SRS and runway stand for when you initiate the roll? Alright, SRS commands are, how can I explain this? So, if you're familiar with the flight control logic, the Airbus, when you're on the ground, is in ground mode. So you have a direct relation between your side stick deflection and your elevator. So if I move the side stick back 10 degrees, I'm going to get 10 degrees deflection in the elevator. So it's a direct relationship. In flight, it's fly-by-wire, right? You pull back on the stick, you're commanding a G-load. I'm commanding a G-load of enter destination data. You're commanding a G-load of more than 1 G, or whatever it may be. The computer will convert that, move the elevator. So essentially, really quick, SRS is going to help you. It's a blending mode between takeoff, flight mode, and maybe meeting V2, second segment numbers, things like that. I'll try to get into that. That's a good topic for another video, because I could do a whole video on SRS. Runway just means runway track. You're tracking the runway. Speed ref system, runway heading mode, I guess. Yeah, that's exactly. I could talk about that more, like I said, in another video. I'll probably make some videos down the line and more systems related. That's a good topic for one, because then we could talk about second segment climb and V1 cuts and all that. Ortho has less impact than default. I probably would agree to that. Referring to vertical and lateral nav modes, yes, it is. Getting into Airbus lately, liked and sub. Awesome, thanks, man. Just going for my private pilot license. Want to go all the way to commercial. Any advice? Stick with it, man. It's gonna be a tough road. You know, from the beginning to end, it's I wouldn't say tough, but it's definitely a roller coaster of a journey. So once you get into it, just stick with it. You're gonna have highs and lows. Stay strong, and but that's awesome, man. There's a guy watching now. I like to call myself the liaison at NASA 6. He's becoming a real world pilot now. I like to think I had something to do with his motivation, but he's in the comments. You can hit him up. Like this. A Texan in the making. Thank you. Yes, sir. Set up a Discord and server. Connor Lou, you know, I am going to be doing a lot. I'm going to be going on leave here from my real world job, and like I said, because I am bringing in a new one, so I'm going to have a lot more time, and I think I am really going to start hitting this off. We're going to set up, I'm going to have a little bit better streaming situation, maybe get a Discord set up or some social media like that, and we can really start to run with this, because I love bringing you guys this kind of content. I'm very passionate about flying, and that's why I love the flight sim communities. While toxic at times, we are all passionate about the same thing, and it's a blast. Alright, I have to do a little bit of work here. Let's take a break from the comments and see where we are. We are 127 miles. Oh yeah. So, we need to look at our approach plate. If you have any charts or anything like that, we're going to be doing the localizer, runway 27 into San Diego, Kilo Sierra Alpha November. So let's go ahead and set up our box here. We got the loc in the box, rad nav. I should have cleared this out at 10,000 feet. We totally screwed that up. Progress page, excuse me, coughing. Alright, progress page. We're going to go San Diego 27. Now, I'm not going to explain too much in detail of how I'm doing the approach, just because I have a video designed to teach you guys localizer approaches into the same exact airport on the same approach. So if you have messed that up. If you have questions about how to do a localizer and I don't cover them, please refer to that video. It's in I think it's in the pilot series, and it will explain from A to B or A to Z how to land on a localizer approach. Alright, let's pull up the weather here for San Diego. Right now, wind is 160 at 5. Temperature is a 1.6, nice and cool. And look at that, standard pressure, 2.9 or 9.2 on the ground. The MDA, the localizer, is going to be 680 feet. We're going to be landing config full. Secondary, let's just go ahead and copy the active. And then what we would do here is we go to the ATSU and send off our performance data, get landing numbers, all our landing data, say this is the runway length, this is where you need to touch down, this is how much runway you're going to burn up, etc., etc. Alright, let's take a look at our plan now. Trying to set the camera up so you guys can see. So we're going to step through our flight plan, make sure all the restrictions are in there. About this time in the flight, you'd hear something from ATC, probably in the realm of JetBlue 159, descend and maintain flight level 230. The high sector and low sector is divided right about 24,000 feet. So coming from the high flight levels, they'll step you down to either 24, 23, maybe 20. I think it's 24 or 23, maybe 25 too. Just kind of depends. And then you'll talk to the low sector, and they'll clear you in for the arrivals. So we're coming down to flight level 230 now. Looking at our arrival, first fix is first restriction is Sophie at or below 26, above 24. Oops. Land mode. How you doing? There we go. Campo below 23, above 190. Helix below 15, above 12,270 knots. Jack below 11, above 10 at 250. Uh-oh. What happened there? Well, that's weird. Huh. When I step down, there's absolutely nothing there. Okay, that was weird. I don't know what happened there. Alright, the rest of everything is in there. Lindy. Lindy is our transition into the approach itself, 5,210 knots. Then a Vida is our intermediate fix at 4,000. Alright, so now what we would do is we would actually brief the approach itself. I'm going to brief it here. I know you guys can't see the chart. I'm going to find a way to get these charts overlaid for you. I'm going to just read it off the top here. We're going into San Diego 27. The localizer is... set that up. We're going to go auto brake slow. Alright, localizer is IUBR 110.9. That's auto tune. Final approach course is 275 degrees. Make this a little bit bigger. You can see that here by the cross right at 275. Minimum altitude at Rebo 2,000 feet. Minimum descent altitude, or minimums are 680 feet on the barrow. They match the glass right there. Touchdown zone 17 feet above sea level. The MSA, the sector altitude, we got the highest one being off to the east at 5,400 feet. That's off the Mission Bay VOR. We got Pappies on the right, mouths of lighting. If we have to go around for any reason, we are going to fly straight out, climbing 2,500 on a heading of 275. Intercept the 255 radial out to Mission Bay and hold the Cicade right turns. That's in the box that matches the plate. Landing on runway 27 in San Diego, we have 9,400 feet available for landing minus the threshold. Going to be a left-hand turnoff at the high-speed Bravo 9, or I'm sorry, Bravo 8, maybe Bravo 9. If we got to roll it out, we are a little bit heavier. We may roll it out to the end, Bravo 10. Our gate's down there anyway. We're in an Airbus A320 for tail strike avoidance. We're going to go auto brake slow, full flaps, max reverse. And that's all I have. Any questions? Hopefully the other guy says no questions. So we are considered briefed and ready for the approach. Make an announcement. Tell them, ladies and gentlemen, we are just about, what are we here? About 20 minutes from touchdown San Diego. It's a beautiful day down there. 68 degrees, partly cloudy skies. On behalf of Flying JetBlue Airlines and this Dallas-based flight, we want to be the first to welcome you into San Diego. Take a brief look at the comments here. Why when pilots fly manually, sometimes they turn off the auto thrust, sometimes they don't? Why is that? Also happens with the flight director. Alright, so that's an important question. You can land with the autopilot off and the auto thrust on. Not a problem, it just means that the auto thrust is running. You can do manual thrust, the autopilot off, that's fine. Flight directors. If the flight directors are on, fly the flight directors. If you don't want to fly the flight directors, you got to turn your flight directors off. And the reason for that is the auto thrust is linked to our flight director system. So if one pilot has his flight director on, and the other pilot doesn't, and the other pilot wants to descend, and he's got the auto thrust on but the autopilot off, and he pitches the airplane down. If the other pilot has his flight director on, and they're at an altitude, say whatever, 24,000 feet, the airplane wants to stay at 24,000 feet, right? But the guy flying the airplane that has his flight director off wants to descend, so he noses the airplane forward. The auto thrust is still engaged. The auto thrust is going to try to maintain 240, so what's going to happen is the auto thrust is going to spool up, because it's like, hey, we're descending, we need power. So now the other guy is going to start overspeeding. So that's why you either follow your flight directors or turn them off and fly manually. You can fly manually and follow the flight directors as well. But you either want to flight directors on and following them, or flight directors off and flying your own thing. Alright, we'll go ahead and continue our descent down to 180. Let's see. JetBlue 159, you're cleared to descend via the Lucky One RNAV arrival. So that would be Vindy 5,000, so we can actually descend all the way to 5,000 feet. Because we are going to descend via the arrival. If my frames start getting really bad here, let me know and we can clear the weather out. I do have default weather. I don't do any of the weather add-ons just because that's pretty hard on my system and I don't find that much of a gain from using them yet. But if it starts getting ugly, we can just clear the weather out. Not a big deal. Happy Friday! Yeah. Thanks, Connor Lou. Appreciate the help there. I'll probably be asking around. Thanks for all the system info. Currently in my second year, inner engineering. Cool to hear all pilots dislike their systems. Too bad they ignore most requests. Boeing. Yeah. Alright, so I'm looking at my approach here. I'm going to calculate a constant descent. So we need to know our descent path from Rebo in is 3.5 degrees. $13 miles, calculate my constant descent point. Alright, we're coming out of 19.9. How are our systems looking? Oops. Looks good. Hydraulics are looking good. Fuel is balanced. One thing you want to check your fuel here on the descent to arrival. Make sure you're balanced. We do have limitations based on the fuel tanks. A little bit chilly maybe. Let's go ahead and adjust these a little bit. You can see the trim air valves opening now as I warmed up the cabin. So now it's going to start bringing up our cabin temps a little bit. Cabin's depressurizing, auto brakes low, everything looks good to go. Alright, there's 18,000 feet. Set, what do we got? 2909 or 2. And approach checklist. Approach check. Let's see, we got, briefing is complete. ECAM status is checked. Auto brakes are low. Seatbelts are on. Minimums 680 set. Engine anti-ice 1 and 2 is off. And altimeters we set 2909 or 2. Passing 16.7 checks. Approach checklist complete. Approaching helix here. We have a speed reduction in 270 knots. That's what that pink dot is right there. Awesome touchdown. Thanks for the like and sub. Could you please explain us of to make a perfect rolling for landing? I make hard landings. Sorry, French. No worries. Well, you know what? I won't talk about making a smooth landing until we make a landing here in San Diego. We'll see. Hopefully I can get a nice smooth one on there. Best thing to do is when the Airbus tells you to retard, bring those thrust levers to idle. Because by the time it's saying retard, it's already expecting auto thrust. So if you leave them in there, the engines are going to continue to spool, and then you might get a little too fast, you might start floating, and then you're going to float down the runway, and then you're going to just have to plop it on and land hard. So it's all a fine balance of knowing when to flare and getting that thrust lever to idle right on time. We'll see here. I'll let you, we'll come back to that comment after I land. Hopefully I can make a smooth one. We are going to San Diego, though. Short runway on a localizer approach. It is known for hard landings. So let me just preface that whole make my excuses early. As pilots, we're always good at making excuses for our landings. So I've already got my excuse in there at San Diego, short runway. And we got a direct crosswind. What's direct point of view for distance? What do you have set in X-plane? Point of view. Well, by default, it seems to work just fine for me. Over here, you see these little balls. So in the real airplane, we use these are three balls here. And what we do is you set up your chair in the real airplane so this ball completely blocks the ball behind it. So you don't want to be sitting here because now you're too far forward and you don't have the proper viewpoint that the engineers designed. So by default, when I hit W, it seems to align perfectly, and I keep it like that for the most part. Oh boy, we got to slow down there. A little bit of speed brakes. Always pull back nice and smooth. Always pull back nice and smooth. You gotta be careful of tail strikes as well, so that's why we owe everything with the stick is smooth, nice and smooth. Minimum fuel after a flight in 320. Well, we don't like to land in the 320 with anything less than 4,000 pounds. That's getting down to the end there. You do a go around with 4,000 pounds, you're gonna have fumes by the time you come back around and land. Hello from Spain. X-plane pilot can't decide 319 or flight factor 320. Well, hopefully I'll be making a new comparison video here since both of them have received some updates, and maybe that will help with your decision. They're both great aircraft. The Tolus is definitely easier on the frames. The flight factor has its pluses with a couple of things as well, so it's pretty much a toss-up, man. They're both great aircraft. I'd like to see them both finished. I know they're both still in early access, so that kind of makes me sad. It's like, but we can talk about that at a different time. Hashtag smash it down. I'm gonna try not to do that, but if we do, just don't unsubscribe. My company ordered any 350s. Not that I know of. What's the expedite button? That will expedite your climb or descent. We don't use it in real life because it can get into trouble either way, but essentially if you hit expedite in the descent, it's going to go to red line and it's going to pitch down, so you have maximum descent. If you do it in climb, it's going to pitch up until the aircraft slows to green dot. It's going to climb out just about green dot. So we don't really use it, but that's what the expedite does. Alright, here we go. Coming below 11.3. We got to be below 11, 10, 250 knots. We should reach our decel point here. Alright, I'm going to set up the camera like this, and like this, so you guys can see them a little bit better. Alright, here comes 10,000 feet. Here is our decel point. And we should see a speed drop to 250. There it is, thrust idle. Let's go ahead and get our lights on. I'm going to select speed 250, or 240 is fine. And so how we do it here, where I work, below 10,000 feet, we select speed, come to our perf page, activate and confirm. So now, the only thing we have to worry about is complying with any speed restrictions on the SID, or I'm sorry, the star. We select speed 250 because in certain situations you can get into trouble when the aircraft flies into a deceleration point and it'll slow to VREF. So we don't want that to happen. Sometimes, and I would say the majority of the time, air traffic control is always giving you speeds. So it's very common right here, and I know this from experience, they're just going to say JetBlue 159 reduce speed to 210 knots. And that always makes it tough, but I'm going to do it in the sim so you guys can see it. So they want us to slow down and still comply with the arrival, so we're going to go speed brakes out. So JetBlue 159 reduce speed to 210 knots. So we're slowing to 210 now. I know in Europe it's very uncommon to be vectored off of a star or a SID and get a different speed. Oh, a little wind shift there. but in the States it happens almost all the time. Very rarely do you fly an entire arrival without a speed change from air traffic control. Alright, there is our VFE, our flap extension speed, -10. This far out, I don't really like to put flaps out, but because we're going to be right at green dot, I'm going to just go ahead and extend flaps 1 anyway, because that's a little bit slower than I like to be. There comes flaps 1. Alright, we are just a tad high on our descent profile. Not too bad, though. Get a little speed brake out there. Gosh, I love these. I swear, the BSS sound pack and this add-on, it's like I am at work. It is so good. The sound pack is so immersive. It blows me out of the water. And in my opinion, a sound can, like the sound files of an add-on, can make or break a module. Or I say module, that's a DCS term, but it can make or break an aircraft for me. Like if you have a great aircraft but very poor quality sounds, I have a hard time flying that aircraft, even if it's a really good airplane. You gotta have those sounds, for me, in my opinion. The sounds are the most immersive part of the sim. Almost more, I would wager almost more than the visuals. You know, I would rather take a little bit less visual to have that 100% immersion with the sound. I just a question there. What does Barrow 680 mean on the PFD? That is our minimums that we set up. So that's just telling us right here. There's our MDA set 680, and now it's on the glass, so it's just an extra reminder. Can you fully extend the speed brakes in the air? No, you cannot unless you have the autopilot off on the 320. On the 319 and 320, you can extend them to full with the autopilot on. But the difference is the 319 and 320, the angle at which they deploy is different than the 320. So a 320 half speed brake is equivalent to a 319 full speed brake. I think I'm saying that right. So in the 320, if you go full speed brakes, like if I were to go full speed brakes right now, I'm only going to get half deployment with the autopilot on. But in the 319 or 321, you would get full deployment, but you're not getting as much deflection. Can't wait for the toolless BSS. Neither can I, man. That's honestly another reason why I'm kind of just, I love flying the toolless. It's got some great features, and the sounds are good, but gosh, it's hard to beat BSS. It is so hard to beat BSS. All right, we should pay attention here. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna, if I miss your comments, I apologize. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of a local approach here. One thing you do not want to be on this approach in the San Diego is high and fast. If you're high and fast, you're probably going around. How does QNH setting affect the altimeter? Mean see pressure and altitude? The QNH, that will change your, it'll change, it's your reference. So you want to set it to the not standard, you want to set it to the current pressure where you're flying. Whoa there, a little bit of another wind shift. There's a turbulence or something going on. JetBlue 159, you're cleared for the localizer 27 San Diego contact tower on 118.3. Alright, we're cleared for the Loc 27 San Diego. So what that's telling us now is we can descend. We can set our descent to 2,000 feet. And we're getting a little high on profile here. Let's get a little flaps out. The reason I can set 2,000 is because Rebo, our final approach fixed altitude, is at 2,000 feet, and we're cleared for the approach. We would contact tower on 18.3. Lindbergh Tower, JetBlue 159, localizer 27. I say, alright, JetBlue 159, Lindbergh Tower, you're clear to land. Number 2, following a heavy 757, prepare to get rocked, most likely. But, not today. Clear to land 27, we're going to pretend that we are anyway. Alright, here we come. Vita, at or above 5, 210 knots. Things are looking up. We are cleared for the approach, and I'm going to go ahead and arm the localizer now. I'm not going to arm approach mode because we're going to do a loc. So, oh, one thing I forgot to press as well is glide slope mode. We're going to turn that off because we're doing a localizer, even though there is no glide slope to this runway. Procedure. Go ahead and reduce speed to 180 knots. If you've been following any of my instructional videos, you know we strive for 180 knots, flaps 2 at 2,000 feet above touchdown. If you could meet that window, you're going to be stable for almost any approach that you do. Alright, I still got the speed brakes out. We're slowing down to 180 knots now. We are in the clouds. Temperature is plus 13 C. We don't need any ice just yet. I think it's gonna stay warm, so we're gonna be good. Loc star, that means we've captured the localizer. VFE next, minus 10. Let's go flaps 2. My frames are definitely getting a little bit choppy here. Hopefully it doesn't look too bad in the stream. Gosh, what's the what's the bottom of these clouds? I think it's like 1500. Alt constraint star. So we gotta be above O'Kane, at or above 3,600 feet. The aircraft is gonna level at 3,600. Speed brake's flashing at me. I had a speed brake out still.
2,500.
I don't know why it's still flashing. Alright. Alright, track FPA. .5 degrees down. I'm gonna go straight to 4.5. So what I'm using here on this approach, I'm using flight path angle. You see I've got the bird right here. This is referred to as the bird. And I'm adjusting the descent based on the angle of the flight path, hence the word flight path angle. This is how we do it in real life. There's methods to calculating your descent path and all that. I have it described in detail on a video on my channel, so if you want to know how to do perfect localizer approaches, go ahead and reference that video, and you should be set for any loc approach anywhere in the world. Alright, as we approach our descent here, we're going to reduce our... The only thing we've got to be careful of here is we don't want to descend below 2700 at CG. And here comes CG, 2700 feet. Right on the money. Push the level off there briefly. And here we go. We'll keep coming down now. Alright, we're going to spin our altitude up out of the way so we don't accidentally capture that. I spun that up to 4,000 feet. Back to 3 degrees. So I've calculated, I know it looks like I'm doing a lot here with the FPA, I am. I can't really get into it right now. Like I said, reference the localizer video if you want to know exactly what I'm doing. Alright, here comes 2,000 feet above well, that's above the ground. We're 2,000 feet, 300 above our touchdown zone, so we're going to wait just a little bit longer. But it is a loc approach, so I do like to configure earlier than later. So 2,200 feet, that's close enough. Let's go gear down, push for managed speed, arm the speed brakes. Get caught back up on our loc. VFE next -10, flaps 3. Just a tad above our profile, so I'm going to go 1 degree greater than the 3.5 degree glide path to try to get back on our 3.5 degree path that is charted. VFE next -10, flaps full. A little bit of balloon there, so we keep it at 4.5. We're looking to be stable at 1,000. Alright, landing check. Cabin crew advised, auto thrust. It is in speed mode. Speed, ECAM memo, landing all green, a landing check is complete. There's our runway straight ahead, 2 reds, 2 whites. We are done compensating for the balloon of the flaps. We can bring our descent path to 3.5.
1,000.
And what I'm going to do here is we're going to go ahead and turn track IR on. Sorry for the jiggles. We'll disconnect the autopilot. And I will hand fly it with auto thrust. So this is one of those situations where we're going to hand fly with auto thrust.
Above.
Terrain.
That terrain doesn't really trigger in real life. It's must be an X-plane thing here.
500.
Alright, here comes our minimums. Flight director's off.
Minimum.
Runway in sight. We are landing. Just a tad high. Increase our descent a little bit.
300.
A little bit of a tailwind here. That's not good.
$200.
Two reds, 2 whites, all the way down. We can't land in the threshold. That's that first part of the runway there with those arrows. We can only land after, I'm sorry, in the displaced threshold. We have to land past the threshold. But we have to be within the touchdown zone. It's a small window to set her down on.
100. $50, 40, 30, 20. Retard. Retard. 5.
Touchdown. Reverse green. I actually have to call out as spoilers. Reverse green. Decel. Manual brakes. 70 knots. reverse comes to idle, start the timer. And we'll turn here at Bravo 8 just like we briefed. Stow the reversers. Welcome to San Diego, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. We'll do a replay once we get to the gate as well, so if you want to see that from the exterior, just stand by. Let's go ahead and get these off. Uh-oh. A little bit of stutter there. This is where it's nice to have a co-pilot, because you can do all this stuff without going off the taxiway. The reason I started the chronometer there is you need a 3-minute cooldown period when using max reverse. Thank you, Haley. Oh, fuel truck. Hopefully we can find ourselves a gate in here. I wanted to go over there, but the gate is occupado. So we're going to make a hard left here, and we're going to take this gate over here. This is not the one I was intended on going to, but I guess they are delayed, so not a problem. Turn the taxi light off here so you don't blind the marshaller. And we're going to make the nice 90-degree turn back to the American gate. That makes sense. We took off from the American terminal. Might as well park at the American terminal. Brakes set. APU is available. 225 on the engine, so we'll stand by on that. We'll simulate that it's been 3 minutes, so we'll just go ahead and shut down engine number 1. Seatbelt sign comes off. Engine number 2. Less than 5% N1. I'm sorry, 10% N1. Beacon light comes off. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to San Diego. Alright, let's take a look at that replay. I'll get through some of these comments and we'll wrap it up. So unfortunately, as you know, if you have the flight factor, the replay sound does not work, so we're just gonna have to deal with that. All right, we'll watch from the runway first. Alright, looking at some of these comments here. Let's look at this landing. Oh yeah, butter right on the markers, baby. Reversers up. Very nice. We can watch that from the engine view. Alright. Which situations do you fly that you don't fly with auto thrust? So it just depends. I mean, depending on who the pilot is, I mean, some guys want to practice a little bit without auto thrust, so we'll turn the auto thrust off, turn everything off to manual hand-flown approach. It's always good to do that to keep your skills sharp. A lot of times as pilots, we get caught up in always using the auto thrust and the autopilot till 200 feet, and using that as something normal. But then when situation calls for manual flight control, we get a little bit hesitant because we haven't practiced in a while. So if it's a place where it's not busy and the situation calls for it, it's good to always practice with regular thrust, with manual thrust, I should say. What's happening here? This looks like some high speed. Thanks for the landings, guys. Landing comments, appreciate it. What do the arrows swinging around on the nav display mean? What exactly are they pointing to? All right, so that is what I was talking about, the TOLUS and the flight factor. The reason I chose flight factor for this approach is those arrows are required for us to know where our top and bottom of descent is. So, for instance, when I start down in FPA mode or flight path angle mode, I want to know where the aircraft is going to level off at. That's what that blue arrow means. That's the bottom of descent arrow. Then there's also like the arrow that shows you when you should start down and when you should start climbing, etc., etc. So those arrows, unfortunately, are lacking in the flight factor or in the TOLUS, but they are not lacking in the flight factor, and I use those heavily, especially on a localizer approach like this. So that's why I chose this aircraft. But that's what they mean. That's all covered in my professional series as well, if you want to take a look at that. There's our touchdown. And you can see, I actually saw it here on this replay. This is the Florence kit right here. You see the the aileron. It deflects up on touchdown. So, cool beans. Alright, we're back at the gate. We're going to shut her down. Cooldown time for reverse, 3 minutes on max reverse. So when you use full reverse, 3-minute cooldown period. Bread would taste very good with that butter. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for that. 3-wire, baby. That's right, Cosmic. Too damn fine. I appreciate it, guys. I'm glad we can pull one out there. I really appreciate y'all joining us for the stream. Joining me for the stream today. So I will, like I said, I'm probably going to start doing these a little bit more. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see. Maybe there's a specific airport you want to see me fly into or out of. It can be anywhere in the world that you want to. I can, even if I'm unfamiliar with it, we can go try something new and experience it together, and I'll try to do it to the best of my abilities. But thanks for all the kind words, and I really appreciate everything that you guys are saying to me, and thanks for all the subscribes and likes. I really do appreciate that. Until next time, guys, keep the silver side up, and have a blessed day. I'll talk to y'all later.